Today we are doing the question set for the MCAT Biology section, Foundational Concept 3. An action potential is initiated at the axon hillock. Which of the following events is the primary cause of the repolarization phase of the action potential? A, the opening of voltage-gated sodium channels. B, the activity of the sodium-potassium pump. C, the closing of voltage-gated potassium channels. Or D, the efflux of potassium ions through voltage-gated potassium channels. The key to the answer here is that they're asking about the repolarization phase. This would be D, the efflux of potassium ions through voltage-gated potassium channels. Because the potassium ions have a high concentration inside the cell, when we open those channels up, the potassium rushes out of the cell, dropping that charge back to that negative resting potential. This is repolarization. Problem 2. A patient is administered a drug that blocks the effects of acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction. Which of the following would be the most likely immediate effect? A, enhanced sensory perception. B, increased heart rate and blood pressure. C, uncontrolled muscle spasms, tetany. D, inability to voluntarily contract skeletal muscles. The answer here depends on us knowing that skeletal muscles contract through the use of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. This means D, the inability to voluntarily contract skeletal muscles, would be the primary effect of a drug that blocks acetylcholine in the neuromuscular junction. Number 3, unlike steroid hormones, peptide hormones typically exert their effects on target cells by A, binding to receptors on the cell surface and initiating a second messenger cascade. B, being transported into the cell via channel proteins to alter transcription. C, permanently altering the genetic makeup of the target cell. Or D, diffusing through the cell membrane to bind to nuclear receptors. The key fact that this problem drives home is that peptide hormones are water-soluble, but they're not able to pass through the phospholipid bilayer of the cell membrane. So typically, peptide hormones bind to receptors on the cell surface and initiate a second messenger cascade. Answer choice A. If we were discussing the primary action of steroid hormones, we would have leaned towards answer choice D because they are able to diffuse through the cell membrane and enter the nucleus to bind directly inside the nucleus. Number 4, which of the following correctly describes a negative feedback loop in the endocrine system? A, an infant suckling stimulates prolactin release, leading to milk production. B, high levels of circulating cortisol inhibit the release of CRH from the hypothalamus and ACTH from the pituitary. C, the release of oxytocin during childbirth stimulates uterine contractions, which in turn stimulates more oxytocin release. D, the pancreas releases insulin in response to high blood glucose, causing cells to take up glucose. Now, this question asks us to identify a negative feedback loop, which would be when the downstream product of a pathway inhibits the upstream feed of that pathway. A great example of this is that when cortisol levels are high in the blood, the releasing hormones and tropic hormones that lead to its increased level in turn get downregulated. It's your body's way of saying, it's okay, we have enough of this now. Number 5, during strenuous exercise, the Bohr effect facilitates the delivery of oxygen to muscle tissues. This effect is primarily due to A, an increase in blood temperature, which decreases hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen. B, a decrease in the concentration of 2,3-BPG. C, a decrease in pH and an increase in CO2 concentration, which decreases hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen. Or D, an increase in the partial pressure of oxygen in the muscle tissue. Now, in this case, we are wanting something that will increase oxygen delivery to the tissue, and we're describing a situation with strenuous exercise, which of course will make an acidic environment, a warm environment, and an environment full of CO2 because we are consuming oxygen and we are producing metabolic waste in the form of CO2. So this describes C. And of course, because hemoglobin is no longer able to hold onto the oxygen, Once it reaches this environment, it lets go of the oxygen, providing it to the muscles that need it. Number 6. Which of the following events occurs during systole? The ventricles contract, forcing blood into the aorta and pulmonary artery. The atria contract, pushing blood into the ventricles. The ventricles relax and fill with blood. The semilunar valves close to prevent backflow enter the ventricles. And the answer choice here during systole is describing the ventricles contracting, forcing blood into the aorta and pulmonary artery. Answer choice A. Systole is the part of the cardiac cycle where your blood pressure goes up because the ventricles, the very, very strong pumping portion of the heart responsible for pushing blood out of the heart, are contracting. Number 7. A person with type AB blood can safely receive a transfusion of red blood cells from a donor with type O blood because A, the donor's red blood cells lack A and B antigens on their surface. B, the recipient's plasma contains anti-A and anti-B antibodies. C, the donor's plasma contains A and B antigens. Or D, the donor's red blood cells have both A and B antigens on their surface. Now, they're describing a patient who is type AB, which indicates that they already have the antigens for A and B on their blood, but they're receiving type O blood, which doesn't have the antigens for either. That matches answer choice A. The donor's red blood cells lack A and B antigens on their surface. Number 8. Which of the following is a primary function of the lymphatic system? A. Producing hormones that regulate metabolism and growth. B. Returning excess interstitial fluid to the bloodstream and participating in immune surveillance. C. Digesting macromolecules and absorbing nutrients from food. D. Transporting oxygen and carbon dioxide between the lungs and tissues. The lymphatic system exists for B. Returning excess interstitial fluid to the bloodstream and participating in immune surveillance. Because when your heart pumps blood, liquid ends up between the cells. This fluid is then channeled into the lymphatic system and eventually returned to your circulation. While doing this, it also collects any kind of foreign objects or foreign organisms that are between the cells in that interstitial space. And of course, we are all familiar with lymph nodes that get swollen when you are sick because this is a form of essentially checkpoints for immune surveillance. Number 9. Which of the following correctly pairs a digestive enzyme with its site of production and the macromolecule it digests? A. Lipase, liver, fats. B. Trypsin, pancreas, proteins. C. Amylase, salivary glands, proteins. D. Pepsin, small intestine, carbohydrates. And the answer choice here is B. Trypsin is produced by the pancreas. Technically, it's in its zymogen form, trypsinogen. It then gets activated in the small intestine, and it plays a key role in the digestion of proteins by breaking peptide bonds. Number 10. In the human kidney, the filtrate becomes most concentrated as it passes through which part of the nephron? A. Descending limb of the loop of Henle. B. Ascending loop of Henle. C. Collecting duct. Or D. Proximal convoluted tubule. And the answer choice here is that it becomes most concentrated in the collecting duct. And the collecting duct, when you have antidiuretic hormone levels spiking, becomes permeable to water, which allows water to flow out of the kidney, leaving the remaining urine very, very concentrated. Number 11. Sertoli cells in the testes are essential for spermatogenesis and are stimulated by which hormone? A. Inhibin. B. Follicle stimulating hormone. C. Luteinizing hormone. Or D. Testosterone. And the answer choice here is B. Follicle stimulating hormone. This directly informs the Sertoli cells that they should continue to produce sperm cells in the process known as spermatogenesis. Number 12. During muscle contraction, the binding of ATP to the myosin head directly causes which of the following events? A. The power stroke, where the myosin head pivots and pulls the actin filament. B. The release of calcium ions from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. C. The release of the myosin head from the actin filament. Or D. The formation of a cross bridge between actin and myosin. And the answer choice here is C. The release of the myosin head from the actin filament. Some people find this a little bit surprising, but it is a key part of this model of sliding filament muscle contraction. The actual active step is the release of the myosin head, not, as it sounds, the power stroke. Number 13. Which of the following is a primary function of osteoclasts in bone tissue? A, to differentiate into chondrocytes for cartilage formation. B, to maintain the bone matrix and sense mechanical stress. C, to synthesize and secrete the organic matrix of bone, the osteoid. Or D, to resorb bone tissue, releasing calcium and phosphate into the blood. And the answer choice here is D, to resorb bone tissue, releasing calcium and phosphate into the blood. Now, you can remember the saying, osteoclasts crush bone, osteoblasts build bone. Number 14. The relative impermeability of the skin to water is primarily due to the presence of which substance in the epidermis? A, hyaluronic acid, B, collagen, C, keratin, or D, melanin. And this question here is asking us about the very strong and water-resistant protein, keratin. Number 15. Saltatory conduction, the rapid propagation of an action potential down a myelinated axon, occurs because the action potential jumps between which structures? A, nodes of Ranvier, B, synaptic terminals, C, dendrites, or D, Schwann cells. And the answer choice here is nodes of Ranvier. These are, of course, the gaps in the myelin sheath that allow the action potential to jump at an accelerated rate. Number 16. Damage to the cerebellum would most likely result in which of the following symptoms? A, inability to process visual information. B, impaired coordination, balance, and fine motor control. C, difficulty regulating body temperature and hunger. Or D, loss of long-term memory. And the answer choice here, of course, is impaired coordination, balance, and fine motor control. Answer choice B, because this is the job of the cerebellum. Number 17. A surge in which hormone is the primary trigger for ovulation? A, estrogen, B, progesterone, C, follicle stimulating hormone, or D, luteinizing hormone. And the answer choice here is D, luteinizing hormone. This is the spike that is responsible for the rupture of the mature follicle and the process of ovulation. Number 18. The process of clonal selection in the adaptive immune system refers to A, the mechanism by which macrophages present antigens to helper T cells. B, the destruction of self-reactive lymphocytes in the bone marrow and thymus. C, the process by which hematopoietic stem cells differentiate into either B or T lymphocytes. Or D, the rapid proliferation of B and T lymphocytes that have receptors specific to an invading antigen. And the answer choice here is D, the rapid proliferation of B and T lymphocytes that have receptors specific to an invading antigen. What this refers to is the way that the immune system doesn't need to know what antibody to make. It just makes a variety of random different antibodies. And then when it actually encounters the correct type of antigen, it then says, hey, clone that particular antibody, make lots of copies of it, and protect the body. This is clonal selection. Number 19. Contraction of the diaphragm and external intercostal muscles leads to which of the following? A decrease in thoracic volume and passive expiration, a decrease in lung compliance, an increase in thoracic volume and inspiration, or an increase in intrapleural pressure and expiration. And the answer choice here, of course, is C. When you contract your diaphragm, it drops the floor of the thoracic cavity down and the lungs expand and you inspire, you breathe in. Number 20. Which of the following would be the physiological response to a rise in blood pressure detected by baroreceptors in the carotid arteries? A, release of aldosterone from the adrenal cortex to increase sodium resorption. B, increased sympathetic nervous system activity causing vasoconstriction. C, release of epinephrine from the adrenal medulla to increase cardiac output. Or D, increased parasympathetic nervous system activity causing a decrease in heart rate. And the answer choice here is D, increased parasympathetic nervous system activity causing a decrease in heart rate. A fun, quick way to remember this is that your parasympathetic tells you to stop, to rest, or to digest. Remember, para tells you to stop, rest, and digest. Number 21. Antidiuretic hormone, ADH, increases water reabsorption in the kidney by acting on which part of the nephron? A, the proximal convoluted tubule, B, the ascending limb of the loop of Henle, C, the collecting duct, or D, the glomerulus. And the answer choice here would be C, the collecting duct. ADH causes aquaporin proteins to actually enter the membrane of the cells in the collecting duct. This allows it to become permeable to water, and then water passes out and concentrates the urine. 22. The sarcomere, the basic contractile unit of striated muscle, is defined as the region between two Z lines, A bands, I bands, or M lines. And the way that we define muscle structure, the answer choice here is the region between two Z lines forms the boundaries of the sarcomere. 23. Bile is produced by the liver and stored in the gallbladder. Its primary function in digestion is A, enzymatically digest triglycerides into free fatty acids and monoglycerides. B, neutralize stomach acid in the duodenum. C, emulsify large fat globules into smaller droplets. Or D, stimulate the release of CCK from the small intestine. And the answer choice here, the role of bile is to emulsify large fat globules into smaller droplets. Bile isn't actually an enzyme. It is an emulsifier. Number 24. What is the role of helper T cells, CD4 positive cells, in the adaptive immune response? A, to produce and secrete large quantities of antibodies. B, to directly destroy virus-infected cells and tumor cells. C, to phagocytose pathogens and present antigens on their surface. Or D, to activate B cells and cytotoxic T cells by releasing cytokines. And the answer choice here for helper T cells is to help activate B cells and killer T cells. Remember, CD8 cells, which are cytotoxic cells, remember that CD8 terminates other cells, while CD4 helps you more. Don't forget. Number 25. Parathyroid hormone is released in response to low blood calcium levels. PTH acts to increase blood calcium by all of the following mechanisms except A, stimulating the conversion of calcidiol to calcitriol, active vitamin D. B, increasing calcium reabsorption into the kidneys. C, stimulating osteoclast activity to break down bone. Or D, increasing the deposition of calcium into the bone matrix. And the answer choice here, because this is an except problem, is D, increasing the deposition of calcium into the bone matrix. Now, keep in mind, that would lower the blood calcium even more if you did that. So we obviously don't want to do that when we're using PTH to raise the calcium back up to a normal level. 26. G protein coupled receptors, GPCRs, are a large family of transmembrane receptors. When a ligand binds to a GPCR, what is the immediate next step in the signaling cascade? A, the G protein exchanges GDP for GTP and becomes active. B, the receptor opens an ion channel, allowing ions to flow across the membrane. C, the receptor dimerizes and autophosphorylates its tyrosine residues. Or D, a second messenger molecule like CAMP is immediately synthesized. And the answer choice here is A. The G protein exchanges GDP for GTP and becomes active. 27. Which of the following describes the function of the somatic nervous system? A, it regulates involuntary functions such as heart rate, digestion, and respiratory rate. B, it integrates sensory information and coordinates the body's response to stimuli. C, it stimulates the fight or flight response during times of stress. Or D, it controls the voluntary movement of skeletal muscles. And the answer choice here is D, it controls the voluntary movement of skeletal muscles. Thanks for joining us for the third and final section of the Bio and Biochemistry foundational concepts on the what is on the MCAT topic list. Hope you enjoyed doing the problems. Feel free to visit mcatboss.com for more personal MCAT help on your journey to med school. See you there.